Hey everyone, it's Brad and Josh here, and we welcome you to We'll Bring the Popcorn, the ultimate film and TV podcast.
Now I want to move us into our second review of the week, which is from Peacock, the follow-up to The Office. It's The Paper Season 1. So to kind of give you an idea of what this show is about, it is the story of a fledgling newspaper in Toledo, Ohio, that the camera crew and the documentary crew from the original Office series have found this company as kind of their next project of documenting this type of real life workplace environment, and come to find out that it's at this newspaper in Toledo, and you get a little bit of a backstory. But one of the favorite characters of The Office is in this show, and it's Oscar, obviously, who, as many of you know, is one of the more popular side characters in The Office. But come to find out, the way that is actually tied is you go back for a follow-up on Dunder Mifflin, and come to find out that Dunder Mifflin closed in, I want to say, 2019 or so, based on the show. But the company that bought it is the company that owns the paper product that also owns the newspaper. So you have this office setup where it's half a newspaper and half of a toilet paper tissue sales company, and you get that tie-in with obviously Oscar being pretty much the only character to kind of accept the reassignment to Toledo to work in this office, and that's where the tie-in comes in. And there's some really fun stuff that happens with Oscar out the gate and his unwillingness to be a part of the documentary, even though they do the funny job of saying, like, there's no time limit on his release that he signed when he did the original Office, which I feel is a funny touch. But yeah, you have this newspaper who gets a new boss, basically. Your new Michael Scott is Ned Sampson, who's played by Donald Gleason, who, speaking of Harry Potter, played Bill Weasley in the Harry Potter films. So you have him as the lead boss character in Ned Sampson, who gets, he is very serious about the news. He wants the newspaper to do great, and you kind of just jump into it. And what are your initial thoughts after watching this, and a lot of the parallels between the original Office versus this version of it? What did you think? What was your initial takeaway from it?
I think we were both pretty apprehensive about it, first off, because, you're doing something as a follow-up to The Office that's tied to it, but not tied to it, and as you mentioned, and we're going to have plenty of spoilers with this too, just because there's so much to talk about with it, especially when it comes to spoiling stuff between The Office and the paper, because as you mentioned, they did that. We got to visit with Bob Vance, who kind of gave where Phyllis is. We do get a bit of, Stanley gets called in one episode, but you don't hear him, and you get quite a few ties, but it's really interesting that they did go to that point of, well, Dunder Mifflin is no more. They've been bought out. It's a laser tattoo and makeup place or something now, that you don't actually have the Dunder Mifflin office anymore. Like, Dunder Mifflin is gone. And so, yeah, that's kind of how they explain Oscar. It's kind of interesting that we don't have anybody else, but we know towards the end, like, Andy was off to his own thing. Jim and Pam had left. You had Stanley had retired to Florida. Kevin had been fired. And so Dwight and Angela and a few of those are the only ones we don't really have, like, what exactly happened. I assume Dwight's off just running his beet farm and his aunt's farm and everything else. But I was actually pleasantly surprised by this because, at first, that first trailer didn't give a whole lot to, like, okay, this seems all right. And then we got the word that it wasn't doing a weekly drop anymore, that it was dropping all at once. I'm like, does that mean the quality is going to be worse or anything else? But I actually enjoy this quite a lot. Like, I went into it knowing that the first season of The Office wasn't great. It was okay. And more rewatches as you go back, and after watching the series, it gets better because you know the characters and you know what they become and everything else. But I also feel like this is a mix of Greg Daniels' other show with Parks and Rec. It definitely feels a lot like The Office and Parks and Rec kind of come together. And you can compare and have parallels with different characters of, like, Ned is in the Michael Scott role, but he's kind of more of our, I don't want to say he's Jim, because Mayor is kind of our Jim and Pam. And so the kind of Ned and Mayor are both kind of that mix of Jim and Pam. And you've got Oscar you've got Barry, the only reporter. He's definitely our Stanley. You have Esmeralda, which I have to say that's the only character I haven't cared about too much. I feel like she's over the top because we're telling a story about a a newspaper that's barely holding on in Toledo, Ohio, and you have this extremely over-the-top Italian woman just wreaking havoc. She is not a fan of Ned because he comes in and takes her job, and she believes she could have it back, so she's doing whatever she can to try to get Ned out of there. And there's some funny moments, but I think it's a very strong personality to get used to right out of the gate. And I will compare her more towards like Andy, because Andy was a very strong personality. And I do feel like the later seasons of The Office suffered a little bit because of Andy becoming a main character, because that type of personality is better in small doses, at least to me. And I think Esmeralda is going to be better in small doses. I want to see how they evolve and change her character going on, because season 2 has already been greenlit. So they are going to do a second season of it. But I do think there's some tweaks and stuff that need to be done to a few of the characters. And I think Esmeralda is probably the one that needs the biggest tweaking, because she was a lot to deal with.
It's so funny you say that, because I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say something that might be controversial. Esmeralda is my favorite character on this show because she's so over the top and is like just over the top, cartoonish villain, like almost Cruella de Vil-esque in ways of just trying to get Ned ousted in this. If you don't know, she is Sabrina Impacciator, who is very famous for being on The White Lotus. If you've seen that show, like that's where, if you've never seen her before in anything else, White Lotus is definitely where she's gotten the most prominence from. But I don't know why she just made me cackle in a lot of stuff, because she's just so bad at being bad. Like it's funny in my opinion. Like she's very strong personality, over the top, very thick, very heavy accent, like bad but meant to be bad. And I think the comparisons to Andy are apt because, as most people know, Andy became more popular on The Office because the actor who played him, Ed Helms, blew up in a big way with the popularity of The Hangover, and I think they wanted to make a bigger role for him just to kind of capitalize on the star power from that. I really think so. I think that's why Andy got more involved in The Office, but I do think there are some moments where she can really evolve, because you have some of the episodes where her and Ned actually work together and get along and try to, at least a little bit. And I think you'll start to see a little bit more of that. I don't know if she's going to evolve that much, but I think you can make some tweaks to her for season 2 that I think would work really well. She was just fun, man. It was just so silly, the stuff that she was doing in every episode in this, that it was just, it worked for me, and I don't know why. Ned is definitely very much like you said, a mix of Michael Scott and kind of Jim a little bit, but he's the one who very obviously wants to be the most successful. He takes journalism very seriously. I like the kind of will they, won't they storyline between him and Mara that go through this entire season, where you can clearly tell there's chemistry there that, you know, takes a little bit of a nut to crack. I wanted to say that one of my other favorite characters on this is Detrick, and I don't know why, because he's kind of this, he tries to act like a player who doesn't know how to be a player.
He's kind of like Ryan.
He's very much like a Ryan type of character on this, but I don't know why it works for me. He's kind of unhealthily obsessed with Nicole, one of the other characters who Ramona Young did a wonderful job of too in this, and she's definitely very much that Mindy Kaling kind of character.
Kind
a little
of
bit.
Kelly almost meeting Angela
A little bit. So you see like some of the hybrid adaptations of these characters from previous characters, but the way Detrick is trying to win over Nicole in a lot of these, just it was very cleverly written in a lot of ways. Like the wooden duck that the wooden bird that he felt for whatever reason,
just gonna carve you a wooden bird,
work, and you just have these guys like. Even I'm like Barry was even like, you know, I'm an idiot, but I can still tell that's clearly not going to work for her. Like there's so many fun, and it definitely leans into a lot of that cringe comedy that The Office was known for. There is a heavy amount of that too, and that kind of so awkward it's funny kind of stuff, especially with a couple of the reporters. I'm forgetting the characters' names, where they go and they're trying to find stories, and you know they come up with the whole like two kids messing with them talking about dogging, and they try to do
that
it
was
with
Adam
those.
and Adola.
Yeah. And you play a little bit of those. Adam reminded me a lot of Andy Samberg's character in Brooklyn Nine-Nine in a lot of ways. Yeah. Like there's a lot of similarities between, and I know they're both like, you know, comedians and stuff like that. So
Adam's definitely your real kind of just dumb guy who knows nothing
knows nothing but is confident in his everyday life.
I would almost call him almost like a Gabe type of character.
A little
in
bit,
that.
yeah. I would say that too. But I agree, man. I enjoy this show because you get them kind of learning how to be journalists, even though they are very clearly not journalists. And they're very open about the fact that really only one or two people in that office have any type of reporting or interest in it. And it's Ned and Mare for the most part, and them trying to, in some of the most hilariously awkward ways, try to get stories out of what's notoriously like a not super newsworthy town in trying to make it interesting. It's a fun dynamic that plays out over this season, and I had a lot of fun watching it. I really enjoyed it way more than I thought I would when we, like you said, because we were both super apprehensive about this show, and I wound up really enjoying this season. I want to go back and watch it again just to kind of, now that I've seen it, I kind of want to dive into it a little bit more, but I got a lot of enjoyment out of this too.
Yeah, Ned and May are probably my two favorite characters out here because they have such a great chemistry together outside of like, if you're talking about their characters' chemistry, but the actors have a great chemistry and work off of each other really well. And Mayor's already given the Jim stares a lot, so you know she's kind of our Jim in here, but she plays it really well, and she's really great in it. It's like she's probably my favorite out of all. But yeah, Ned, you're kind of, he's walking that line of being a little bit of a Michael Scott and being a little of a Jim, that he knows what he's doing, but he doesn't know what he's doing because he was kind of a Nepo baby. His dad, his family comes from some money, and they poke fun at that, which is some really fun dynamic between Mayor and Ned when they're kind of really ribbing him about his upbringings, because there's a line about like, what did you do with the sheep and all that stuff? So your parents bought you a sheep, and like, what did you do with it? Oh, well, the cook did this instead, because he ribbed himself like, oh yeah, the cook handled, cooking my meals and stuff like that. But there was such a great dynamic back and forth. I also like Ken. Ken is more of the absurd Michael Scott personality. He is the other, because it is kind of a weird dynamic that you have everyone's basically local to the area. Then you have Ken and Esmeralda, who are your international flair with our British and our Italian people. But Ken definitely gives you that Michael Scott, I'm just an idiot, over the top, don't know what I'm doing type of guy who is working with Esmeralda to try to overthrow Ned, but he also gets to see parts of it like, oh, maybe I need to remove myself from her, and maybe I need to do this. And you also get him, he's in charge of, there's an incident that happens with the toilet paper side of it, which they share an office. It's half of it's softies and half of it is the paper and stuff. There's no walls between them, so they can see each other. But there's an incident with the softie side that the newspaper ends up coming in and helping, but also throwing under the bus, which was a good storyline and a good thing there about the morals of reporting, even if it's your own company. But he sets up an ice cream truck and he's handing ice cream out to the kids, but it turns out that it's peppermint scented toilet paper, and the kids are all eating it and stuff. Like, it's so dumb, but it's like, that's the Michael Scott dumb. That's something Michael Scott would have done. You
know who Ken is? Ken is Michael Scott meets Dwight.
Yeah.
That's exactly who Ken is. Mm-hmm. He's a British version of Michael Scott mixed with Dwight. Because you have the whole, like, he's kind of in charge, he's kind of not in charge, but he is in charge. He's kind of Ned's boss.
Yeah.
Ish. Like, his role in the company is very, like, very loosely talked about, but he's kind of like this guy who's above Ned, but under the owner of the company. He's kind of like that, I don't know, upper management, not upper management kind of character. It's weird. You
also get some of Ricky Gervais's British office as part of Ken's character.
Yeah, you definitely get a lot of Ricky Gervais in there too. I love the episode where Marv, the owner of the company, has to come down on the floor and spend an episode there.
The I Love You episode.
The I Love You episode was so funny just to see. One of my favorite lines is actually an Oscar line from it. It's where, like, Ned, for whatever reason, gets into this mental space where he's trying to please the boss by just like putting up these like absurd, the absurd meeting where they're all like, I'm going to point at you and you're going to nod and you're going to
stand up and we're going to high five.
We're just going to like it's walking out. Everybody claps walking out. We're just going to put on this great show for the boss. And
like, why don't we have an actual meeting? No, let's.
But they go through like this whole absurd routine, and like he goes, and it's very clear. It's very clear that Ned enters this headspace of like dealing with some unresolved father issues potentially that they don't dive into too much, where he just wants to make this this father figure boss Marv happy, and one of my favorite lines is just so simple and funny. It just tickled me where Oscar is doing his confessional to the camera crew where he was like, you could clearly tell Ned was going through something, or was trying to work through something, and he should, but not at work. But it was just, I don't know why it just tickled me, but it was just so apt and funny. It was like yeah, you could clearly tell he was working through something, and he needs to, but probably not here. And it was just, I don't know why it just made me laugh, but it was so poignant and funny at the moment. But yeah, man, there was a lot of really smart writing in this, and I really have to applaud them. Like you said, we were worried when they dropped all 10 episodes and it wasn't like a weekly thing how committed they were to it. But like you said, season two's been greenlit. I'm excited for what could potentially be set up in season two, because now you have a little bit of spoilers here. The last episode is them winning awards in this Ohio Journalism Awards ceremony, and there's some funny hijinks that happen in
Oscar's speech.
Oscar's speech was really funny. Esmeralda just going over the top to try to take away anything that could positively, put Ned in a good light at the end. But you do have the kind of a kicking off of what could potentially be an actual relationship between Ned and Mare, where, they talk about the very real, power dynamic problem for them, Ned being her boss and potentially being romantically intertwined now, do they just say screw it and it puts them in a different spot? But that was definitely, it was definitely interesting to see where that could lead in season two and what direction they're going to take that in.
Yeah, because they also played up a lot with the documentary crew. As you mentioned, a few things with it that, since The Office ended and you got to see a little bit more behind the scenes. Of course, you had the Sound Man storyline with Pam, and you got to see a little bit. They're going much deeper, that everyone talks more about and is more aware about the camera there, and you have like microphones get thrown off at one point so they can have a secret conversation, and you just overhear two random guys who then stick their head in front of the camera like, hey, you shooting a movie? Oh, a drama, and like doing that kind of stuff. But also the replies to Oscars you mentioned, like I do not consent to this. You do not have the right. So yeah, your one from 2005 is still active. And there was something, I think it was with Nicole. She said something and they just pop up no on the screen and then go back to it. Like they're definitely going heavy. Like we've compared it to The Office a lot. It is not The Office. It is a pseudo continuation of it because you have Oscar and we know what happened with Dunder Mifflin and where things are with that, but it is trying to be its own thing. I do feel like it is much more The Office meets Parks and Rec because you get some more of the personality to say more align with some of the Parks and Rec's characters than they do with The Office, but they're really trying to establish something new and different with this paper, but being very relatable to what they've done in the past with their very popular shows. I mean, Parks and Rec and The Office were both really fantastic, long running shows. I didn't laugh as much as I thought I would, but I don't think I laughed that much in season one of The Office or season one of Parks and Rec as much. So that's where I'm really intrigued to see where this goes in season two and on, because season two is where both of those really took off. And I think with some, adjustments, a few of the characters, and we got to see, but I was surprised at just how, even though I wasn't laughing as much as I maybe thought I would, I was engrossed by the story. I was getting into trying to figure out these characters and what their world is and their personalities are, and seeing how Ned and Mare and Nicole and all of those, they kind of really evolve and change. And you get Trav from the Softies, who's kind of he's almost Packer in a way. He's just kind of that oddball personality out there who's kind of playing both sides. But I really was enamored by seeing what the story they had to tell of how this paper evolves and how they keep things going and how they're going to mix in like the softy stuff, because we got a couple episodes that was very heavily not just about the newspapers, about the other parts of the business, and we get a little bit of the warehouse and the dock and stuff as well, which we don't get to see very many employees. So far we haven't seen that. No Dunder Mifflin warehouse employees have gone over into that side and stuff, but I was just surprised just how much I was into the story more than caring about how much I was laughing. I was really trying to connect and go through this journey with the characters.
I really think if you watch this entire season, it's 10 episodes in total. I really feel by about episode 4 or 5 that it really hits its stride. And you can tell like they had gotten more comfortable with the characters and the world building and the situations where they wanted to go narrative wise. Because episode 1, the pilot episode, is very slapstick. We're trying to introduce these guys and kind of surface level figure out what we've got with these people. But by the end of the season, I think these are fully fleshed out, real characters that you kind of get a better grasp on, because you do get that exposition throughout the entire season. But I really feel like from about 4 to 5 on through the rest of the season, they really hit their stride with, quality storytelling. One of my favorite high points was the episode where they're trying to bring back the shame on you segment, and they go to the mattress store, and it's kind of the back and forth with, the early stages of, Ned and Mare, are they, aren't they kind of thing. And it's, that dynamic of trying to bust this mattress company and them just, getting on the same page and have that gotcha moment where they're just kind of nerdily celebrating in the middle of the store kind of thing. But it's really fun to see how they all evolve from the beginning of the season to the end. That I really do think season 2 has an opportunity to really jump up in quality level now that they've kind of fleshed out these characters on it. You could tell some of them may need a little bit of a tweaking and some of them may need a little bit more time. I was hoping we would have gotten more Travis time, honestly, because I think Travis could be a fun character that you can kind of dive into a little bit more, because you really just got the whole him going to the fishing place and like he's just kind of this emotionally unstable guy kind of, but you could tell he's kind of like a central character in a lot of stuff that you can kind of dive into him a little bit more. But I'm excited to see
Nicole as well towards the end. She's going to get something different towards maybe season 2 because of how season 1 ended with her. Yeah, because she's kind of a cold character, but you see her warming up just a little bit towards the end.
I think you could do some fun things with her as well. But I'm excited for season 2, man. I'm excited to see where they can take this story, move it forward, and kind of really amp up the quality, lean into that comedy, because it is funny. There's definitely funny moments in there. You got to get to it, though, and I think this works if you have a particular sense of humor. Like, I think if you like The Office, you'll like this.
If you like The Office, Parks and Rec, anything that Greg Daniels and company have done, you're going to enjoy this.
I think you'll get a lot of enjoyment out of this, too, because they do a good job of kind of balancing between the cringy comedy and, like, the good quality storytelling that you got from The Office and Parks and Rec. I think they have a good mix there, and I think there's some real potential for season 2 to take off.
I want to go back through, as you said, you want to do a rewatch. I want to do a rewatch and look for all the Easter eggs and stuff, too, because there are several Easter eggs, one with a doll that Michael had given Oscar at some point. There's some references, like to some old bosses. I believe I saw the Froggy sticker somewhere in there at one point as well. So there's plenty of little bitty Easter eggs from The Office that are out there. But I'm curious if maybe there's some stuff in Parks and Rec and stuff too. I mean, they're not far from Pawnee, Indiana and Toledo, Ohio to have some references and stuff there. So it'd be interesting if we do. I would love to see a tie into Parks and Rec as well. We were never fully in the same universe because you did have, Anne also was in The Office as, Jim's girlfriend for a little bit there. So they're not in the same universe, but it would be fun to see some Easter eggs between those two shows and bring something back, even if it's just some bits and pieces. You don't have to have characters, but give us like a reference to Pawnee, Indiana or something like that, just to kind of just have some fun with that as well. Because I do feel it's a big mix of The Office and Parks and Rec, which I love both of them. So I was happy to see, but yeah, there's definitely some tweaking to do for season 2, but it was a better start than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, for sure. Give me a Nick Offerman cameo in there at some point. He doesn't have to be Ron Swanson. He doesn't have to not be Ron Swanson. But like you said, have maybe one or two of these people that were in Parks and Rec just to kind of make an appearance and show up. If it could be the actors even that are in different roles, just to kind of a wink and a nod to the audience that are fans of those shows to kind of make an appearance for sure. But
I don't know why this just popped in my head, and sorry to cut you off again. Detrick's bird, going back to The Office, didn't Stanley, when he retired, he was just carving birds on his front porch. Yes. So I wonder if that's it was definitely an Easter. Yeah. I don't know why I didn't catch it then, but right now my head was like, okay, that's an Easter egg to Stanley.
That's why I made me
because I was thinking Nick Offerman, if you know anything about him personal life, because it was even joked about in Parks and Rec, is that he's big into woodworking and everything else. So I was starting to think about an Easter egg with woodworking and stuff with his character as well, but I'm like, wait, that's probably a reference to Stanley.
Could you imagine them finding Stanley retired carving wood and Nick Offerman's with him. Like that would just be perfect. It would just be a perfect. There's the possibilities. Give us a writing credit, please, if that shows up in season 2. But yeah, the Paper season 1 is just it's a fun journey to go on if you're a fan of The Office and Parks and Rec. I think you're really going to like this show. It's smartly written. It takes a little bit of time to get going, but I think when they really get going, like I said, by episodes 4 and 5, they really find their voice and it really starts to take off in this. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 for this first season. Like, I think you get a lot of charm, a lot of heart to these characters where they're really starting to buy into themselves as journalists and kind of finding their footing a little bit. And it comes at the expense of some very cringeworthy kind of comedic moments at times, but you really start to root for these people to be successful and have this paper just kind of pull itself up by the bootstraps. But I'm giving it an 8. I think it's smartly written, especially the back half is really high quality of this show, in my opinion. Really excited for what it sets up for season 2, but yeah, I'm giving it an 8, and I'm really excited for them to kind of jump off and see what's next.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm going to give it a 7.5 just because I feel like there does need to be some tweaks, some characters. I wasn't as big and high on Esmeralda as you were. She kind of dragged stuff down for me more than she brought it up, just because it was almost too over the top for me. Like, you can have over the top. The Office and Parks and Rec both had over the top stuff, but I think her character was just a little too much for me. It was overwhelming. So if they do some tweaks with that can easily be a much better show. And I didn't laugh as much as I thought I would, but it is a fun combination of The Office and Parks and Rec. That the Ned and Mayor characters, I really felt their working relationship, and everything else that's building. And Nicole, I enjoyed. There's some characters really enjoyed, and I just feel like there's a few things that need to tweak that could really make this a solid series going forward. So I'm giving it a 7.5 just because it just needs a little bit more tweaking to get to that point. But as I mentioned early on, The Office needed some tweaking after season 1. Parks and Rec needed some tweaking after season 1. Yeah. They both didn't come out of the gate strong. And I think if you give this a chance, and as we head into another season, that it's got potential to be something as special as The Office was.
Yeah, I get it. And Esmeralda is definitely going to be a very polarizing character. She is a lot. I'm not going to deny that. She is a lot. I do want to give her some flowers a little bit, because I don't know why the episode where they were auditioning kids for the commercial, she was so funny as this overly dramatic, over the top, like, stage mom with her kid who very clearly sucked as an actor. Like, he was just terrible, and she's trying to coach him up and just be that stage mom of like, no, my kid's the best. Like, you have to. Like, it was just so funny.
See, my favorite part of that was Oscar and the kid, because yes. Oscar's like, he made it up, and he's like, this is how you handle an overbearing, over the top mom. And he's like, okay, thanks, I'll remember that. And then they do a talking head of him, and he's like, I'm not listening to that guy. He doesn't buy my Wendy's or something like that. Like, that was a very funny line from the kid that he delivered there.
Yeah, it was good. But I mean, the whole point was he was just this terrible, like, emotionless, didn't have any emotion. I mean, he's a kid, for the love of God. But auditioning for the commercial, you very clearly see that he was less skilled than the other kids that were at least getting the opportunity to interview. And you just have her just over the top of her trying to act badly, and it's just, it works for me. I don't know why. I get why you see, because she is a lot. She has a very grating personality, but she plays into that so well, and she leans into it, and you could tell she has a lot of fun doing it, like, on the show, and it works for me. I don't know why. I was just like, I could tell within like the first 10 minutes of the show, I was like, I'm going to like her. I'm going to hate her, but I hate her. I love her because I hate her, kind of thing. And it just, I don't know why. It works for me, and I hope they do kind of tweak her a little bit and give her a little bit of depth, because she does have some moments in that season where, especially like the catfishing episode was
with Jarson,
was with Darson, which was so funny.
Jarson, it's Jason and Jared put together. It's Jarson, very Jarson. Common name.
So funny, so funny.
And the cameo with that episode.
The cameo was this fantastic chef's kiss. But like, she has some moments, and then like the episode with her and Ned trying to team up to take out this the kid blogger was really funny too. And like, it's just, there were moments where she, I think, really shined in this and made some made some potential not as good episodes really funny just with her involvement in it. So I'll give her some love for that. And I get it. She's going to be a very polarizing character. Some people are going to be like, absolutely not. The personality is an instant no for me, but it works. I think it adds a fun dynamic to a show that might not be as interesting otherwise.
I think you can keep her being an eccentric character, but just tone it down a little bit, just to give her some more layers and depth other than being this just insanely over-the-top character. Because you felt like that was happening because you got a kind of a touching moment between her and Ned.
Sure, yeah.
And then the next few episodes, she's back to just being...
right back at him.
In your face, over-the-top craziness stuff with it. Because you kind of saw that, oh, no, we're just going to go back to it. It's like, I just want to see a few tweaks with her. I like the actress, and I think it could be a fun character. It's just a lot. For me,
it's a lot. I get it. Yeah, I get it. She's a lot to deal with, but like I said, I'm into it. I enjoy it, and I'm excited for this. All of the episodes of The Paper Season 1 are out on Peacock right now. Go check it out. If you've watched either one of these shows that we've reviewed this week, come to our Discord, come to our YouTube comments, talk about these shows with us. We had a lot of fun talking about them today. To find all of the episodes of We'll Bring the Popcorn, go to our YouTube page, hit the like and subscription button so you're getting our episodes when they drop each and every Monday. If you're listening to us in the audio room on any of the podcasting platforms that we're on, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review. It really helps elevate the profile of the show. And don't forget to go to willbringthepopcorn.com, where it has all of our archive videos, all of our social media information, as well as our merch store, so you continue to support the show in that way. We cannot thank you enough for your continued support.